Howdy chaps, and welcome back to another fantastic episode. You may already notice something different. I gave myself a haircut. After working on that Commodore all weekend and getting it in the ground, in the dirt, and getting it caught in the welding helmet, I was like, that's it. But of course, me being me, I couldn't not shave the sides and the top and leave the back for 5 seconds, so I looked like a full bogan with a mullet. It was hilarious. I had to trim the beard and everything. So this week we're off to episode 4 on the wagon, and we are going to tackle lead wiping. And boy, I hope I get it right, because I've been practicing and I've been studying and doing everything, so fingers crossed it works okay in this episode. And at the very end of this episode, we'll be doing a little bit of panel beating on the VF Commodore. That repair is coming along smashingly, although I did get one comment this morning by somebody saying a true Ford person wouldn't work on Holden bleep 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 bleep. So I had to delete and report that comment. I deemed it completely unnecessary, and just to what purpose does a comment like that even serve? Like, come on, you're here to enjoy it. If you don't like what you see, don't watch it. It's like that simple. If you're a Ford man and you don't like Holdens very much, just keep your comments to yourself, keep your trap shut, and don't watch the Holden stuff. I am a car guy. I like all cars. Anything that's cool, Holdens, Fords, MGs, all kinds of cool stuff. Hell, I even like the Fiat X19, the really little Italian car. I think they are really, really cool. I'd own one in a heartbeat. But yeah, I just thought that was just a rude and unnecessary comment. And actually, I've had quite a few people I'd call friends bag out the Commodore, and I'm like, why? Have you ever owned one? No, you haven't. So you have no frame, no context to bag him out. You just don't. You're just ignorant. You're just ignorant. You're just ignorant. Anyway, that just really bugged me right to the core. It did. I was like, unnecessary, people. But anyway, enough chit chat. Paddywhack, give the dog a bone. I'll show you some stuff that we have for this car. So we mentioned we were going to get one of these little guys. Apparently this was a whopping $40 on eBay, and it is a boroscope. Now if I hold this button down, that should come on. Now we've got a little light on the end of a stick. I don't actually know, because there you go, you can sort of see what it's looking at. So the plan was to walk it over here and somehow film this while poking it up there. So we're going to hold this up here, or I need this to be somewhere where I can see it, so bear with me for a brief second. So here we go. Oh, this is going to be some awkward camera work, so you just stay there and focus on that while I walk this thing, and I drop that in the process. It's amateur hour here today. Yeah, okay. Maybe I'll hold it with a hand as well. One hand short. The joys of having a big belly. Right, so we're going to poke up this camera up this roof here. So we'll start with, you can see the repair. This is a bit funky, and up we go. It's really the camera is not picking up the quality very well at all, but you do get the general idea that you can see up inside the quarter panel, and it actually looks fairly clean inside there. So believe it or not, just here on the inside it's actually very, very clean. So I've also worked out in that last brief 2 seconds, it's incredibly hard to film, hold and work this thing at the same time, and the camera can't pick up the screen very well. But anyway, that's one of the tools of equipment that we have here. that we can, if I turn that off, we can use to inspect stuff. So what we're going to do is I'm going to wire wheel this very heavily, because we sprayed this on 2 weeks ago, because never ever leave a piece of metal, bare metal, for longer than 24 hours if you can avoid it. Hell, 12 hours is probably long enough. So what we're going to do is wire wheel this. I'm going to throw a couple more welds up through here where they've been missed. Well, I didn't miss, I just ran out of time that time. And then I'm going to clean this. I'm going to tin it with some tinning agent, and then we're going to attempt to put some lead in it. And I will be wearing a respirator and masks and everything, so bear with me while I get it all prepped and set up. So chaps, I've welded it up, did the welds that were just in here, ground them down. I'm not going to bother about grinding those ones down just yet till I've done my lead wiping. I'm going to play it by ear. I don't have any idea how well this is going to work. I am not an expert in lead wiping. All I've done is research, and of course the best way to learn is by doing. So all of this is going to be covered in lead, hopefully. You're going to learn along with me, and hopefully I don't make a faff of it. I don't have quite the right flame tip for the oxy, because, well, they're very hard to get now, because believe it or not, lead wiping is not a common thing anymore. Bog actually replaced lead as the substance to fill in grooves, because, you know, bog's a hell of a lot easier to deal with, doesn't kill you as quickly, and it's got a lot going for it, and it's really easy to deal with, whereas lead is a bit of a tricky subject. So I'm just going to set up the camera, and we're going to just wing it. From what I've figured out and learned, you clean the steel super clean, like clean. It is super clean right now. Wire wheeled it like crazy, all the grooves, everything, make sure there's not a drop of rust in it. Then one of the ones said just run it over with a grinder to put some grooves in it, so it's got something to into. Then we tin it. I've got the tinning stuff. That's fairly easy. You brush it on with a brush, and then you flame it, and then you wipe it off, and then it's tinned the whole area. That's where the lead sticks to. It's like a giant version of soldering, basically. Whereas, like, if you're doing like electrical solder, the solder's got the tinning agent in it, whereas the lead doesn't. So we tin it so the lead sticks, and then we very gingerly put it in there, and hopefully don't lose it all on the floor. So I'll just set up the camera, and then we can just run along with me. And that, ladies and gents, is about as far as my knowledge takes me. I think I did it right. So what I'll do is, I won't bore you with tons of this, but I'll probably keep going and put a bit more in, and then we can just focus on shaping it, and then it won't need as much bog in it down the track. Obviously that is quite literally the very first time I've ever done that, so go easy on me, people who actually know how to do it. Anyway, I'm gonna have some lunch and we'll get back to this after that. Okay, I'm gonna give up at that point, because if I spend too much more time doing this I'll go crazy. But I think we've got the basic shape, and at least now we can shape it up and just put a little bit of filler over it and it'll be done. But at least the lead's in there filling the major craters, and it shouldn't crack like the bog kept cracking. So I'll admit, lead wiping is definitely an art form, and this is my first ever attempt at it. I was using this $8 spatula thing from the supermarket to do shaping. It was certainly a bit interesting. We had the right gear, and as you saw in the video I sort of tried to do it properly. I was trying to pick some of this off before, and it's definitely stuck well to the panel because it's very hard to remove. So now I'll just do some light shaping and maybe a little bit of filler work and be done with this repair. I'm very happy to see lead in here because that's what the factory put in, and that's what I'd like to put back. And most people would be like, why did you even bother? Well, everybody can bog, and there are some things that lead can do that bog can't, and lead seems to stay in there a little bit better than bog, and obviously it's a flexible joint. The body rotates a bit, and obviously if the Ford factory thought bog was the thing to use, they would have used it. Probably because actually if you think about it in the hindsight, in the metal shop of the factories, lead is a lot cleaner to use than bog work. You wouldn't get dust and stuff everywhere, you just need to sweep the floor occasionally and you're done. That's probably the real reason they use lead over bog. Not really sure, but there we go, that's that. Certainly warm, but I'll give it a shape and then catch up in a second. Alrighty chaps, with a little bit of sanding and fiddling. I mean, we've got a couple of little dimples where the lead obviously wasn't as thick as it could have been, but for more or less though, with a thin skim of filler, because obviously there's still dents and warpage from where this thing was repaired, with a thin skim of filler across here, that should make it lovely. I'm going to still sand down these welds here, and a bit of lead. It was actually hard to get the lead to go in this area because it's sort of, gravity was like bloop, but that actually for a first timer, gotta be said, I'm actually reasonably pleased with that. And at least now the lead, you know, you can put a thin skim of bog and it's not going to fall out. That lead should, I mean, it's not coming out without some heat, so hopefully that'll stay there for a long time and shapes up okay. But I would recommend you definitely wear a respirator like I was, some gloves and whatnots for the any lead work you might do. A little bit odd shape through here, but you know, it is what it is. But how good does that come out? I'm actually quite pleased with that. We all remember what it looked like before, with a big, had like a crater dug through it at the beginning. So now it's turning out alright. And when we finish up this, I'll continue on and fold that roof back down to where it was and weld it back up and carry on. Right, so that wraps up this repair for today on the video, on the XC. I welded these down and spot a couple of little holes, but I folded the roof back down, tapped them up as best I can so the roof shape is back. And I haven't welded it in case I decide to go down and take the roof off path, but I'm not sure I'm going to do that, so I don't know what I'm doing yet. So that's that. It's leaded. Still obviously needs a bit of bog work and stuff, but we're pretty close. Also, you know, as this is still a shop that needs to get stuff done, we have a bright green barrow rocker cover. Customer's request, it's not for me, but it is very green, isn't it? One of the annoying things about painting something like this is if there's a flare up or something, you got to keep putting paint on. And I had a big run through here. One of the tricks, if you've got a run and you know that it's going to go, what you can do is, if you've got a run through there, keep putting paint on and you can actually move the run all the way to the bottom where it won't matter, and you can trim it off. I've always said the best way to pick a good painter is how they handle their stuff ups. that is the biggest and best way to pick one. So I had a run through here, and I know that if you just keep nailing the paint on, you can move the run from somewhere really obvious to somewhere where it doesn't matter, and then you just wipe it off with your finger. So that's what I did there. I've got another little one here, but I think I can just denib that one and not worry about it. This thing was a nightmare to paint, this thing, because this thing had some sort of rubberized paint on it or something. It just wouldn't come off. I've never used so much paint stripper in my entire life that I did on this particular cover. La cover. But it, you know, it is a rock cover. It's probably going to end up covered in oil, but you know, for a quick job, I don't think that's too shabby at all. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to be working on the VF in the backyard, doing some dent pulling. So we'll catch up in a second. Right chaps, we're back at the home, and dent pulling machine. Now this is called an Eagle, I believe, or Easy Dent Remover. In the crash shops they're called Eagles, Eagle 2s I believe they're called. This is a dent pulling machine. I'll show you how it works, but it is a awesome bit of kit that I've been lent. The trick is to know people, isn't it? Lift it up off there. Might have a bit of wind noise, that goes over there. So we got this gadget here. So that's the bit that welds itself to the panel by pressing this here button, and you put it through this first, obviously, through that into this, and this is like a pry bar, and you can just pull ever so slight pressure on it. And this is the bit we're interested in, because this is the shrinker. Heats up a little spot and sinks it in. So we need to bare metal this section here. I'm going to take the fuel flap off, and we're going to shrink down this and pull up this. And then obviously I was screwing around with a hot glue gun the other day and was actually able to pull a lot of this dent out, but I didn't have acetone to remove it, so we'll sand that, make sure I don't damage this. I've got to put the fuel neck back in the hole and take this strap out of the situation, because I'm done with that now. I might just take these 3 screws out, because I need to use this as a paint sample, and it also isn't damaged and doesn't need to have any bog work or sanding done to it at all, so it can come out and be used for that. So we'll get it set up and we'll get cracking. I've also got I've put it away, haven't I? Some of the same seam sealer as the factory use. I don't know if this is the exact same stuff, but supposedly it's the same yellow, so that's what we're going for. I have a satin clear and my colours to mix up in the boot, so that when it's all done I can, I don't know if you can tell, if you look somewhere in here, the boot is actually ever so slightly shiny. It's not actually dull, so it needs to be like scotched, etch primed, sanded, made all pretty, seam sealed, and then just a gloss coat over the top, probably the gloss coat and then seam sealer, so that I want it to look exactly factory, so then I can put the battery back in and all that stuff and get this back on the ground tonight. That would be really lovely. And I want to put it in the tail light, put my bar on, which I have, and get it back on the ground by the end of this video, hopefully. So let's get stuck into it. So the idea is to try and do this one-handed, but it's not really going to work. So you just put this through here like that, so as a pry bar, and then basically put it on the panel, press the button, twist it off. You want to do it, you don't really need the pry bar if you can, and yeah, you can do that all a lot. Hammer them out. Unfortunately, this little thing, the shrinker, is not working, so we'll have to pull this area up and maybe use this in the welding function and put slight pressure on it so it pushes it, like shrinks it in. So we're gonna have to make do, but I will catch up in a second because I just need to get this done. But I thought I'd show you how this little guy works. So it's one of the best tools you use in a crash shop for pulling dents. So I'll get into it and catch up in a bit. Point in time where you must stop and know you won't get it any better. There's been a hell of a lot of shrinking through here, a bit of pulling, did a couple up here. It's actually pretty close, and with some filler you won't even know. But unfortunately it looks a little like a teenager's face, but part and parcel really. I've got limited tools, limited time, limited everything, so I've just got to do as good as I can and hope for the best. It is a lot lower in this section and much higher through here, so the basic shapes are done. So just a shame the shrinking side of that wasn't working, but oh well. We just had to shrink it by actually just welding it on and just pushing in ever so slightly so that it shrunk the steel. Yeah, well, it is what it is. I'll catch you up in a jiffy once I've done a bit more. Not really sure I want to know what the current time is, but battery's back in, battery's reconnected, that battery's hooked up, everything behind there is seam sealed and looking lovely. I've got my battery vent in, comes out through there. I did a little bit of bog work, but considering it's probably, what time is it? If the phone ever works. Oops, 11:24. Probably best get inside and give it away for the evening. Oop. But that's a pretty darn good and productive day. So, making progress all round. Catch you on the next episode.